desire to understand Krishna at all. But their practices involve rituals that do worship Krishna, and so they get some result. They get that result, they come back to this world. And this section here, in these two verses, it is described that, okay, they go up there. But for those who are devotees, those who are unalloyed devotees, Krishna personally takes care of them. So text 22 is the third verse in this chapter that purely describes pure devotional service. In the first two verses, Krishna has described the superiority of their shelter and realization. In this verse, he describes the superiority of the devotees in terms of his direct connection with them. It is very clear in the way he interacts with the other kinds of practitioners and the way he interacts with the devotees that the devotees are an exception. And that is the point Krishna is making here. In the second chapter, there's a verse that tells the Jnana Yogis or Nishkama Karma Yogis, using almost the same phrase, Niryoga Kshemam Atmavan, where it is mentioned that if someone can find the verse, it would be good. But this Niryoga Kshema Atmavan, they're told, don't worry about trying to get things, yoga, that you don't need, or shema, protect things that you have. That will be taken care of by just your karma. You focus on going within and purifying your heart or uncovering realization of your spirit soul. But here Krishna takes it a step further. He says, not only are my devotees the best kinds of transcendental practitioners, but they're also personally taken care of by me. And the specific sentence that describes this verse is that the devotees are an exception in terms of how Krishna deals with them. Then text 23, to contrast the brilliance and the superiority of the devotees. Again, the ones who worship the demigods are highlighted. Sometimes it is said that if you place a diamond on a black cloth, if anyone has been to a jeweler, that's what they do. They will place brilliant jewels on a background that shows or accentuates their beauty further. But in a similar way, you show the brilliance of the devotees by showing the other kinds of people who make up the majority of the rest of the population. So text 23, 24, 25, 245. So if you go to that verse, thank you. You will see almost the exact same words used, in fact the exact same words used in text 22. Here it is said, Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. I personally give them what they lack and preserve what they have. Here it is said, Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. Be free from dualities and from anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. That is Krishna's instruction. After contrasting the Nishkama Karma Yogi or the Jnana Yogi to those who are trying to seek material enjoyment through the Vedas. He says, don't be worried about this. It will come automatically, as is due your karma. Sometimes it is said, both happiness and distress are just given by karma. Prahlad Maharaj states this in the Bhagavatam. But for the devotees, Krishna is personally present, and he's personally involved in taking care of them. Not just he gets it done, karomyaham, but vahamyaham. Vaham means what? Vahan means like carrier. Sometimes you say that if there is an elephant that is carrying the deities, that elephant is carrying Vahami, the deities. Or Vahan also refers to like a chariot, anything which carries something else. So Krishna is personally carrying the devotees. That's not true for other kinds of even transcendental practitioners. So the devotees here are specifically called out. Text 25 speaks about the different... Yes. Do you remember that example we had? contrasting the first and middle 6 chapters, where I'd given the example of my grandfather, who took on PhD students and at the same time was running a clinic. My mother represented what category? Mixed bhakti. So that's not, you could be a devotee on the path of mixed bhakti, on the path of pure bhakti with material desires, or as we discussed the other day, mixed bhakti. But was she connected to my grandfather? Because of a relationship. And that's what Krishna means. He says in the Adi Purana that those who consider themselves my devotees are actually not my devotees, but those who consider them the devotees of my devotees, O Arjuna, they are my devotees. So when Krishna says, I personally have a relationship with my devotees, it is to be understood that it's because these devotees identify themselves as being servants of my servants, or servants of Krishna's servants. This is why when we offer obeisances, we don't offer the pranam mantra to Krishna directly. We start off by offering prayers to our spiritual master, or if we don't yet have a spiritual master, to Srila Prabhupada. And we say, it's like, when you present yourself before someone who's your superior, you don't start by asking, can you tell me something about yourself? You start by introducing yourself. You say, my dear sir, I am so and so. And so how we go before Radha Gopinath is, we go before Radha Gopinath and say, my dear Radha Gopinath, I am the servant of your servant. Please accept me in that way. So for such people, Krishna accepts them. So text 26. Now here, Krishna, this is the 4th verse describing pure bhakti. And in this verse, Krishna says, it is actually, you should practice bhakti simply because of its ease of practice. Even for the Jnana Mishra Bhakta, ekatvena pritakwena bahuda vishvato mukam, that there's such a difficulty in their abstract form of meditation, the isolation, the austerities, the difficulties they have to undergo in forcing their mind to focus on something that is so abstract. But Krishna is saying, even though I'm the master of everybody, I develop hunger to eat the offerings of those who without material desire, with affection for me, and he mentions the word affection twice. Bhakti, bhakti, he says twice. With affection for me, without material desire, who makes an offering to me of even the most simple and easily accessible elements. Leaf, fruit, water, and flower. One who makes an offering to me of these 4 elements, I develop the hunger to eat it. And the principal example that the Vaishnavas give is one of Vidura. There's another example in the Ramayana of Shabari, when she would personally eat the fruit. Of course, this doesn't come in Valmiki Ramayana, it comes in Ramcharitramanas. But she would eat the fruit to make sure it was tasty and then give that to Sri Rama. So even uchishta, so to speak, which is one's personal saliva, which is forbidden actually in standard processes of deity worship, Krishna was willing to accept because she was offering without material desire and just with a desire to please. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, he describes and accentuates the point that this shows how easy bhakti is and why, therefore, people should practice it. That is the theme of this verse. It's ease of practice. Prabhupada says, for the intelligent person, it is essential to be in Krishna consciousness, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, in order to achieve a permanent blissful abode for eternal happiness. The process for achieving such a marvelous result is very easy and can be attempted even by the poorest of the poor, without any kind of qualification. The only qualification required in this connection is to be a pure devotee of the Lord. It does not matter what one is or where one is situated. The process is so easy that even a leaf or a little water or fruit can be offered to the Supreme Lord in genuine love, and the Lord will be pleased to accept it. No one therefore can be barred from Krishna consciousness because it is so easy and universal. Who is such a fool that he does not want to be Krishna conscious by this simple method and thus attain the highest perfection of life of eternity, bliss and knowledge? Krishna wants only loving service and nothing more. Krishna accepts even a little flower from his pure devotee. He does not want any kind of offering from a non-devotee. He is not in need of anything from anyone because he is self-sufficient. And yet he accepts the offering of his devotee in an exchange of love and affection. To develop Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection of life. Bhakti is mentioned twice in this verse in order to declare more emphatically that bhakti or devotional service is the only means to approach Krishna. No other condition, such as becoming a brahmana, a learned scholar, a very rich man, or a great philosopher, can induce Krishna to accept some offering. Without the basic principle of bhakti, nothing can induce the Lord to agree to accept anything from anyone. Bhakti is never causal. The process is eternal. It is direct action in service to the Absolute Whole. What does that phrase mean? Bhakti is never causal. It doesn't have a cause. You can't do anything to get it. Bhakti comes from bhakti. Meaning that from the heart of one who has bhakti, it can be transferred to the heart of one who is not yet having bhakti or that level of bhakti. That's what it means. So which means that bhakti is only possible to achieve in the association of Vaishnavas. Bhakti is not possible to generate by following some process. You can't just perform your duties properly and get bhakti for the Lord. You can get a distant regard for the Lord, our acharyas say. It's like, for example, how the PhD student can give things to my grandfather by offering his prescribed duties. There's a distant sense of trust and regard that forms. But it's not exactly bhakti. Bhakti, as it is defined in terms of that natural movement of the heart towards the Lord. This is described in the 3rd canto of Bhagavatam, where it is said, Madguna Shruti Matrena Mai Sarva Guhashaye Manogatir Avichinna Yata Gangham Busombudo. That Madguna Shruti Matrena, when one simply is hearing and one's heart begins to flow just naturally, spontaneously towards Krishna. And it can happen even for a new devotee. They come into the temple and there's kirtan, it's like their heart just opens out and flows. Everyone here has had that experience. Could be with kirtan, it could be with Bhagavatam, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, or in the association of Vaishnavas. It's just like, oh my, these people are so wonderful. There's this natural feeling. They're practicing bhakti, they're chanting Krishna's names. There's the feeling of the heart flowing. And especially as practicing devotees, when we get a chance to see someone else practicing bhakti nicely, like if you come to the morning program and you see someone chanting very deeply and intensely, you feel like, oh, that is so wonderful. I wish I could do the same. Or look at this devotee, he's serving so nicely. And your heart opens out and moves towards that devotee. That kind of movement of the heart, as soon as you hear Krishna's glories or see him being served, that is defined as bhakti. So that kind of feeling is never caused by a process, like, for example, simply one's prescribed duties or anything. Can't be generated on one's own. Has no cause except for the bhakti in another devotee's heart. Because bhakti is its own cause, therefore it is said it is without cause, without external cause. So when we associate with devotees, and the kind of association we have is also important. If we associate with those who have mixed bhakti, the impressions of mixed bhakti go into our heart. Though if we associate with those who have pure bhakti, that deep faith in pure bhakti, not just speak about it, but have that faith, then from their heart that bhakti is passed on to ours. Therefore Prabhupada said, he was asked, what is different about your Bhagavad Gita? Prabhupada said there were 700 translations of the Bhagavad Gita before this was published, Bhagavad Gita as it is. But he said, none of the other Bhagavad Gitas ever produced a single devotee. This was the Bhagavad Gita that produced a mass of devotees around the world. Because Srila Prabhupada's heart is in his purports. When we read Prabhupada's purports, we are associating with Srila Prabhupada directly. And that association fills our hearts with the same conviction, with the same force, and therefore the same bhakti. So that's what that phrase means. Madguna Shruti Matrena. Mad, M-A-D, Guna, G-U-N-A, Shruti, R-U-S-R-U-T-I, Matrena, M-A-T-R-E-N-A. Madguna Shruti Matrena. Comes in Kapiladev's teachings in the 3rd canto. So I believe it is, I think it is in the 25th or the 29th chapter. It's in one of those 2 chapters. Yes. Well, yes. No. Yes. I was once with His Holiness Devamrit Swami, and I'd asked him, he had said, how many hours do you read Prabhupada's books? I said 3, how many hours in a week? So I said 3 hours. He said 2 less. You need to be reading at least an hour a day. I said, okay. Then what about hearing? He said, what is your understanding of the difference between hearing and reading? And I said, well, hearing, it's much more interactive. You're dealing with someone more directly and personally. He said, he shook his head. He said, Prabhupada's books are recorded kirtan. So you are actually hearing Prabhupada when you see these words. Associating with Prabhupada personally and reading his books are completely the same thing, have the same effect. But the question is actually the degree of our acceptance. Of course, in Srila Prabhupada's presence, when Srila Prabhupada was very directly speaking, perhaps it would have influenced our ability to accept that those words. In Srila Prabhupada's books, we may not be as attentive, or we may skim through several sections. So the association is there. It's just our capacity to take it may be limited. Which is why when we read Prabhupada's books in the association of other devotees, as in our study circle now, or when a devotee has that level of consciousness where they can sit and absorb Prabhupada's association through his books, then they come in contact with Srila Prabhupada directly. So for those who are on the street to read Prabhupada's books, very often they will say, didn't quite understand much. But I understood one point, that you have to seek out a spiritual master. And that's enough. That's all they needed to know. And that's the same thing that they would actually get in Prabhupada's association. Oh, okay, I need a guru. Or, no, I'm actually the spirit soul. Oh, that point was nice. One sentence somewhere, some concept, something will strike them. It's very rare that someone would be able to understand much more than that, unless they have a background that they come from. Yes. No. But what is the actual cause of that bhakti? Their bhakti in their hearts. So if for example, you are something you do just kind of generates from. It's not a good example. Something that it causes another thing, which is a transformation of itself, or which is an expansion of itself, is not said to have an external cause. That's the idea. And here when we say bhakti has a cause, technically speaking, you say that the bhakti in someone's heart has caused the bhakti in someone else's heart. You do say that. So you may say that the bhakti here does have a cause. But the word cause here refers to a material cause, either through rituals or some kind of practice or austerities or any other thing we can think of. Yeah. Actually, bhakti is the essence of Krishna's Kripa Shakti. Krishna has different Shaktis. He has the Icha Shakti, his will, which gets things done. Then he has his Kripa Shakti, which is his Shakti of mercy. And Bhakti, our Acharyas describe, is the essence of his Kripa Shakti, because it awakens his mercy. So this is in Mother Yashoda's binding of Krishna, the Damodar Leela, both these Shaktis were at work. Krishna's Ichha Shakti very strongly did not want to be bound. So Mother Yashoda could not bind him. But Mother Yashoda's desire to actually serve Krishna by correcting him was so strong that Bhakti invoked Krishna's Kripa, which was a stronger Shakti than his will. And that is the sweetness of Vrindavan. So his Kripa, it overrode his own personal desire. And he thought, okay, I will be bound. So he was bound. Okay. Now, the other point Prabhupada makes here is the necessity of eating only vegetarian products and offering it to Krishna. It is very frequent for us as devotees to value the chanting of Krishna's names, but not as sufficiently value the honoring of prasad. And sometimes we, in our day-to-day life, become very casual in what we eat, what we accept. This is actually disastrous. Because the eating of food that is not prasad, even more strictly, eating of food which is cooked not by devotees and offered. The best standard, obviously, is to eat that which is cooked by devotees. Grown by devotees, plucked by devotees, stored by devotees, cooked by devotees and offered to Krishna. That kind of prasad has an extraordinary effect on our consciousness. But at least the best that we can do is to buy raw ingredients, cook it ourselves and offer it, or eat from the hands of other Vaishnavas. Now, it is a fact that in modern life, there are some degrees of compromises that are made. When we have relatives, we offer the food and eat it. When we go outside sometimes, or we're traveling, or in an office function, some compromises are made. However, what we should know is what the effects of those compromises are. When we eat something that is not prasadam, our consciousness is affected. Prabhupada describes this actually in the 3rd chapter. So if you go to chapter 3, and you go to the verse Yagishishta Shinasanto, no, it's not in that verse. I think it's Yagyatat Karmano Nyatra, or there's a particular verse where purport where Srila Prabhupada speaks of Ahara Shuddhi. Does anybody remember the purport where that comes about? I think it's maybe verse 10 or 11. Yes, it is it is 11, I think, sorry. It's in that purport, page 149. Now this is really important. Prabhupada in the last purport says, performance of yagyas has many side benefits, ultimately leading to liberation from material bondage. By performance of yagyas, all activities become purified, as it is stated in the Vedas. Ahara Shuddho, Sattva Shuddhi. Ahara Shuddha means what? Ahara means food, grains, food. The purification of food through offering it to Krishna. Sattva Shuddhi. Sattva means what? Doesn't mean Sattva Guna. Sattva here means the Chitta. Sattva is another word for Chitta. Sattva Shuddhi. The Sattva, the consciousness, the storehouse of our impressions is purified. Our material impressions are purified. What is the opposite of this? If we eat impure food, then the impressions of those who have cooked that food go into our Chitta. Our entire material life is based on an impure Chitta, because those impressions come out in our consciousness. And when we choose to act according to those impressions, we act out our conditioned desires. However, as practicing devotees, we always face the fight of fighting against our desire to be Krishna conscious and those part of us, those desires or those impressions that are pulling us away. To the extent that we eat impure foodstuffs, that which is not offered to Krishna and preferably cooked by devotees, these impressions, these material impressions will build up in our consciousness. And it makes it so much harder to be Krishna conscious. Those who make it a practice to eat impure foodstuff for convenience or other reasons, they will find that their chanting is disturbed. They cannot focus on their chanting. They will lose some of their taste in reading Srimad Bhagavatam. It becomes a struggle. And those who become very conscious of their chanting, very conscious of their service, they also become very conscious to regulate this input. Because as much as we regulate whom we hear from, the intake of prasadam, or the intake of what we put into our mouth, is extremely significant in how it influences our consciousness. So ahara shuddhau sattva shuddhi. Sattva shuddha, when the consciousness is purified, dhruva smriti. The memory becomes purified, it becomes certain. Dhruva means certain. Our memory becomes clear, our intelligence becomes clear. Dhruva smriti, smriti labde sarva grantinam vipramoksha. Sarva grantinam vipramoksha means that we begin to understand the purport of the scriptures. We are able to penetrate through the life around us and see what is actually valuable, what is actually going on. We are no longer confused by the ups and downs of this material world. But to the extent that we're chanting, sometimes we start to feel, does it really matter if I don't do this? Or does it really matter? Who has had this feeling before? And you will get this. It is inevitable. Even if we are chanting, if we are not careful about the association we keep and about what we eat. This is really, really important. And there are several sections of verses that describe what happens when we act according to our material impressions. Can anybody quote a specific section of the second chapter or any other chapter for that matter? If you go to chapter 2, it's text 62, 63. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa. When those impressions come into our mind, one begins to contemplate them. Such contemplation leads to sangha, a sense of association, a sense of, this is who I am, this is who I want to be. Sangha sanjayate kama. From that sense of who I am, I want to do this. So sometimes it's described as thinking, feeling, and willing. Feeling is a sense of identification. Willing is, no, this is what I want to do. It's stronger. Kamat krodho bijayate. And from the desire, I want to do this, comes also this burning in the heart that wants to remove obstacles that stand in our way. And from that burning, krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammoha means bewilderment. We lose discrimination between what is right and what is wrong. We start to feel like, no, actually, I need this, I want it, it's okay. We start to forget why we didn't do those things in the first place. Sammohat smriti vibrama. From the loss of discrimination between right and wrong, we lose our memory of our desire to be Krishna conscious. We forget. We come to class, we go out, we just forget. And that's what happens when we focus on those impressions. Smriti Brahmsad Buddhi Nasho. Buddhi means our determination. I have come here to take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, of the Vaishnavas, to chant Krishna's names. I have come here to develop my relationship with Krishna. That determination, that buddhi is lost. And when that determination is lost, buddhi nashat pranashyati, we come and fall into this material world again. So this is the effect of impure impressions entering our consciousness. One of the principal reasons for which is impure foodstuffs. So in this verse, in 926, Prabhupada is emphasizing this point, and it's not taken seriously enough. Prabhupada first says, one who loves Krishna will give him what he wants, and he avoids offering anything which is undesirable or unasked. Thus, meat, fish, and eggs should not be offered to Krishna. If he desired such things as offerings, he would have said so. Instead, he clearly requests that leaf, fruit, flowers, and water be given to him. He says of this offering, I will accept it, Therefore, we should understand that he will not accept meat, fish, and eggs. Further down, Prabhupada says, in 3rd chapter, verse 13, that's the Yogeshishna Sinasanta verse, Sri Krishna explains that only the remnants of sacrifice are purified and fit for consumption by those who are seeking advancement in life and release from the clutches of the material entanglement. Those who do not make an offering of their food, he says in the same verse, are eating only sin. In other words, their every mouthful is simply deepening their involvement in the complexities of material nature. But preparing nice, simple vegetable dishes, offering them before the picture or deity of Lord Krishna, and bowing down and praying for him to accept such a humble offering, enable one to advance steadily in life, to purify the body, and to create fine brain tissues, which will lead to clear thinking. Above all, Prabhupada is quoting that exact same verse, except in translation. Above all, the offering should be made with an attitude of love. Yet he will accept the offering of one who desires to please him in that way. The important element in preparation, in serving, and in offering is to act with love for Krishna. Further down, Prabhupada says what it means when Krishna says, Ashnami, I eat. Prabhupada says, but in actuality, Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, has senses, and it is stated that his senses are interchangeable. In other words, one sense can perform the function of any other. This comes from the Brahma Samhita. This is what it means to say that Krishna is absolute. Lacking senses, he could hardly be considered full in all opulences. In the 7th chapter, Krishna has explained that he impregnates the living entities into material nature. This is done by his looking upon material nature. So in other words, we need a particular part of our body in order to carry the function of reproduction. But Krishna can inject living entities into the womb of material nature simply by his glance. This is done by his looking upon material nature. And so in this instance, Krishna, hearing the devotee's words of love in offering foodstuffs, is wholly identical with his eating and actually tasting. This point should be emphasized. Because of his absolute position, his hearing is wholly identical with his eating and tasting. Only the devotee who accepts Krishna as he describes himself without interpretation can understand that the Supreme Absolute Truth can eat food and enjoy it. Many people in India, or otherwise, not understanding Krishna's nature as being absolute, the food was there, it's as it is. It's just offered and taken without any kind of faith. The thing is that most pujaris now in India, in many of the traditional temples, they don't understand this point because their training is no longer there. Previously, people would be able to see this, understand this because of their understanding of Krishna's nature, because of their love for Krishna. But now when it's just done as a ritual, you just put the offering and you take it out. It's done more as an item of show. This is technically called damba. Damba means a show of religious pretense for the sake of fame. But the majority of religious performances are actually fall in the category of damba. It's considered to be an asuri quality. Not really for the sake of pleasing Krishna, just for the sake of show. But that's the majority of what happens there. But this is really how Krishna eats, and a devotee can actually perceive this. A devotee can actually feel within their heart, can understand as they do this over time that Krishna has eaten this. They can even understand that, oh, this is something that Krishna has not liked. By sometimes you taste the Mahaprasad, you'll get head pujaris who will tell you that, this offering I don't think was quite right. It needs to be changed. And they're not just going off their conditioned taste. When devotees serve Krishna, they're given the intelligence to understand what Krishna likes or doesn't like, the combinations of foods that he likes. Now, devotees who are like in very traditional temples, who have, cultivated a practice, they have, through their affection, created a particular system of offering. Like, for example, Prabhupada was once asked, how do you feed Krishna? Prabhupada's instruction to the devotees was, when you're feeding Krishna, understand that you're feeding a hungry 16-year-old boy. That is the quantity of foodstuff that you put there. And the devotees would balance the foodstuffs appropriately. So if there's something that is spicy, there's something that is there with ghee. Or if there's something that is sweet, it is balanced by something that is bitter. There are bananas, it is offered with something like pepper. Sometimes in India, if you cut fruits, you put pepper on it to balance out the coldness of the fruit. But devotees offer a balanced plate to Krishna because it's a personal offering. And initially, when devotees begin to make an offering, they make an offering of what they eat. There's a famous pastime in the Ramayana when Sri Ramachandra and Lakshman and Mother Sita were in the forest. Bharat and all of the other residents of Ayodhya came to see Sri Ramachandra. And at that time, they saw a small deity of Vishnu had been established in their hut, and every day they would make offerings. This is an essential element in Vedic culture, regardless of whether it's a fasting day or not. For every householder, brahmacharis are near the temple, but for every householder, it is essential that an offering be made at home. It could be as simple as fruits and roots or nuts or what have you, but an offering has to be made at home every day. Once is sufficient. But home deity worship is very, the timing is important, cleanliness is important, but the opulence of the worship is determined or is flexible, and it depends. It's sometimes said that Krishna doesn't see how much you give; he sees how much you hold back. So that is the way by which you judge the opulence of an offering. If what you have given is all you have, Krishna says that what he has given me is more than what even kings are able to give, because kings only give a partial amount of what they have. But if we have a lot and we give Krishna the same one apple, then Krishna sees what we're holding back, because that determines, yeah, it is leaking. Can we just move? Can we get a bucket? Sorry. So in the beginning, we tend to offer things that. So with Ramachandra's pastime, so there was a deity and there were fruits and roots being offered. So Mother Kaushalya, she came into the hut and she saw the deity of Vishnu and she smiled in her own mind. She said, "It is true what they say, that the deity of any household is forced to eat whatever the people in the house eat." Because Vishnu is treated with so much opulence in Vaikuntha and so much opulence in so many other temples, particularly in Treta Yuga. Now here he is, present in the hut, eating the simple fruits and roots that they themselves were eating. And so she smiled to herself. That the deity is he eats whatever the householder eats. Whether it's small, it's small. When Sanatana Goswami would get 3 chapatis, he would go to 3 houses, and whatever he would get from those 3 houses, usually 1 chapati each house, that would be his meal. He would offer it to his deities, Radha Madan Mohan, and he would eat it himself. So once Radha Madan Mohan asked him, Baba, can you at least put a little salt on the chapati? And his response to the deities was, is it my fault that I don't have any salt, or is it yours? I'm offering you whatever I'm given. So if you want salt, you get it yourself. And then Radha Madan Mohan arranged for salt to be given. But the deities take the opulence of whatever the devotees are capable of giving. But what they emphasize in household deity worship is timeliness and punctuality. But in either case, whatever we have, it is important to make an offering to the deities at home. That is an essential part of deity worship. We can offer initially, what we eat. Because, especially those who have children at home, the number of requests I know that I've asked my parents for, sometimes it is said that you can take a ship home. You can take a ship and fill it very quickly, but you can't ever fill a stomach, because a stomach is just never ending. You can just keep eating and eating. The demands the children have of their parents is quite a lot. But if parents make a habit of cooking what children need and want, with an offering to Krishna, then children feel satisfied at home. But initially we offer to Krishna what the family likes or what we may like. But as that matures, the family themselves will be thinking, well, what would Krishna like? And that matures. But whatever level we are in, we begin there. Make an offering to Krishna, whatever we are making or cooking. Then we start to think, no, it's a little spicy, I need to tone it down, or what have you. We start to make a more balanced plate. But an offering always has to be there at home. It's an essential part of our daily sadhana. Chanting and honoring prasadam, these two things are uncompromisable in terms of beginning standards. And they're both essential to understanding Krishna properly. Okay. Now, text 27 is a very special verse. It's one level lower than pure bhakti. And its explanation is this. In pure bhakti, before we even perform the items of devotional service, that is hearing, chanting, etc., even before we perform that, it is first offered to Krishna for his pleasure. What that means is the element of surrender is there. This is described in a verse by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto. Iti pumsa arpita Vishnur bhaktish navalakshana kriyate bhagavat adha tanmanye adhitham uttamam. So Krishna is saying the highest education, or the highest level, is iti pumsa arpita Vishnu. After offering it to Vishnu, bhaktish navalakshana, performing the 9 processes of bhakti. Even if our whole life is based on like performing kirtan, but we perform kirtan as we like it. We perform kirtan in a way, oh, I want to do it because I want to do it, and then it is offered to Krishna. Krishna, may this have been pleasing to you. That does not reflect the attitude of performing the service for Krishna's pleasure alone. The fact that we first offer it to Krishna, so this is the first thing, the fact that we first offer it to Krishna implies that there is this element of, I'm doing this how you want me to do this. I'm doing this as the Vaishnavas would be pleased. I'm doing this as my spiritual master has instructed me. Dedicating this performance to you, I engage in these items of bhakti. So pure bhakti is defined in these terms. But one lower level than this is still where we want to do things a little bit in our own way. But when we connect our whole day from morning through to evening to Krishna, that is still very special because we are conscious of Krishna throughout the day in every situation. That is what is described in verse 927. To give you an understanding of why this verse is special, think about one level lower, or not just one level lower, several levels lower, say N. This is Nishkama Karma Yoga. In Nishkama Karma Yoga, of course, you have certain duties, your daily duties, your occasional duties. And all of these duties are first performed and then offered to Krishna. But it is not that everything you do during the day is offered. The time they spend with family is not offered to Krishna. That is just known as kamya karma, or pleasurable duties that are not forbidden by the scriptures. The technical Sanskrit term is kamya karma. So they may perform these activities like spending time with family, laughing and joking with one's wife, etc. But that's not offered to Krishna. And they do it for the sake of liberation. But in 927, there are 2 things that are different. First, every part of one's life is offered to Krishna. And it is for the intent of a relationship with Krishna. So Krishna is saying, even if you can't practice pure bhakti, at least, O Arjuna, do this. Because the qualification for pure bhakti is that sense of, I am Krishna's servant and Krishna is mine. There's nothing else there. And the level of surrender that it requires is very strong. But the question is, how to get that level when we do have parts of the day that we do just do things for ourselves? Well, we can hear and chant more deeply. We can, focus on surrendering. And that is one thing that we can definitely do. But there's another thing that Krishna is recommending, and he's saying, let's read verse 27. Yat karoshi yad ashnasi yat juhosi dadazi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Translation. Yat karoshi, whatever you may do. Yadashnasi, whatever you may choose to eat, not just which is offered to me for my pleasure. Yad juhosi, whatever else you may offer. Yad dadasi, whatever charity you may give away. Yad tapasyasi, whatever austerities you may be performing, for whatever reason. Yad tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. So whether you are a yogi or a jnani or a devotee, that's because there are people who usually perform this. You don't often get grihastha devotees who necessarily perform austerity for the sake of austerity. They perform austerity when there's devotional service involved. But there are people whose life naturally is austere. So Krishna is saying, don't just dedicate your prescribed duties to me. Dedicate it your whole day. Your sleep, your brushing of your teeth, the preparation of your body, how you dress, how you talk to people, how you interact with family, what you eat, how you eat. All of these things, you consciously connected to me. It's every facet of our day. And Krishna is saying, in the next verse he will say, by doing this, you will quickly become purified. You will achieve a place very, very close to me. Very, very close. It's almost on the level of what pure bhakti offers. You will have an intimate relationship with me. Not exactly as intimate as pure bhakti in the four rasas, but still a very intimate position of service in dasya to me you will get. That is Krishna's instruction. When I first read this verse, I was first... there were two feelings that I had. One was how wonderful this instruction was, but also how much Krishna was asking us to be conscious of him during the day. Because if we have to chant our rounds for 2 hours, it's like, okay, chanting done, now it's my time. Or, this done, now I can do what I want. But what Krishna is saying is move a step away from that. And to be conscious of Krishna throughout the day, no matter what one is doing, it's a much deeper level of surrender. But it's something that we can grasp, even to the extent that it's beyond just our immediate chanting, our deity worship, or our service. Even if it extends beyond that, to the conception that we understand that, okay, this is Krishna's family, and I need to deal with them in a particular way that is pleasing to Krishna, so it can be fit for offering to him. This is Krishna's house. And so therefore I need to clean it in such a way that it is fit for offering to him. That consciousness of Krishna in whatever we do, no matter how small or big, or how in terms of effort or time it is, allows us to develop that relationship and feeling for Krishna. Allows us to understand that I am Krishna's servant. It is a platform that is very, very close to the level required in pure bhakti. And we can step from this to there with proper association, hearing and chanting very easily. So therefore Krishna is recommending this verse. Now, if we had a bit more time, I would want to actually ask how devotees feel about this verse. But if you had to ask what the definition of karma yoga is, so karma refers to activities of the body, mind, words, etc. The deepest way to explain karma yoga is how to live one's life, or how to do these activities of body, mind, and words in such a way that it is fit for offering to Krishna. When these activities are dedicated to Krishna for the purpose of liberation, and it's only certain activities that are dedicated, it is called Nishkama Karma Yoga. When all these activities are purely dedicated to Krishna for his pleasure, with nothing that we want in return, that is the level that pure devotees engage with the material world in. But when we do a little bit of what we want, but we consciously make an attempt to connect it to Krishna, even if we do things wrong, Jiva Goswami says, we connect it to Krishna through feelings of regret, genuine regret. So everything in our life can be connected. When we try and do everything in such a way that it is pleasing to Krishna, and try and connect it to Krishna, then that second level between Nishkama Karma Yoga and pure bhakti is still extremely valuable. That is the instruction of this verse. Yeah. It is somewhere, it is above mixed bhakti, because in mixed bhakti one is maintaining one's material desires in some way. But here one is connecting things that one is doing. See, in the Chaturvida Bhajante Mam verse, in the 7th chapter, there are devotees who are approaching Krishna for relief from material distress or things like that. So it's above mixed bhakti, it's a little below pure bhakti. There's no official name given by the acharyas to this. But because of the element of karma and jnana, they call this karma jnana mishra bhakti or something they call it. Meaning that it's bhakti with elements of mixture of karma and jnana. That's Vishwanath's explanation. But the understanding is that this is very, very close to pure bhakti. It's hard to do. There's no name that's necessarily given. If you want, you can call it pre-pure bhakti or something. I mean, you can give that kind of name. There's still a sense of this is my house, this is my family. That sense is still there. What is the stage of pure bhakti? Yeah. Yes. Manasa deho geho or sarveshva tomar charane sampiya. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur described himself as a household dog taking care of Krishna's house and family members. For a devotee at this level, they identify a little bit, this is my house, this is my family, but consciously they are aware that this actually belongs to Krishna. So even though they do things in a way that they may prefer, they still consciously make an attempt to connect it to Krishna. That's the difference. Yeah. That is categorized under this verse here. So that's yat karoshi, yat ashnashi. Whatever you do, whatever you eat. We eat because of taste. So whatever you eat, but connected to Krishna. Yes. Grain is more important. You try and avoid grain from outside if you can. Grain. The consciousness enters into grain much more than it does in other ingredients. So grain, like chapati, rice, pulses, pastries, cakes, bread outside, as much as possible. Every devotee has to choose their standard. But here is the standard, that it is cooked by devotees and offered to Krishna. Now, devotees will choose a standard that they're comfortable with. But one has to be aware of the risks involved, is my point. But this is the standard, this is the ideal that Prabhupada emphasized. In his first writing, where he was speaking about the vows of the initiated devotees, for the very, very first initiation, Prabhupada wrote, so all initiated devotees shall chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, follow the 4 regulative principles, and he described what these 4 regulative principles were. And then he said they will all wake up early in the morning and come for Mangalarti, and they will only eat food cooked by devotees offered to Krishna. So those were the standards that Prabhupada had for initiated devotees. So as much as we value the chanting of 16 rounds and following the 4 rules, waking up early in the morning to worship Krishna, and Mangalarti at home or here, and honoring of prasadam cooked by devotees is equally important. Prabhupada emphasized it in that way. Now, devotees often ask this question, I'm at a work function, what am I supposed to do? So I once asked my spiritual master that question. The way he answered it was, I'm not going to describe what you should do. I will tell you what the standard is. Now you decide what you want to do. That's what he said. He told me that for himself, he doesn't eat anything which is not prasadam, which is not cooked by devotees. I personally tried to follow that standard for some time. But then at work functions, for example, I would try and mentally offer something like salad or something and eat it. Then I started to just bring things cooked from home and I would just eat it there. So that's what I started to do. But sometimes if devotees feel like if there's juice outside or water outside, water is fine, but juice outside or something that is offered outside, what should I do? These are details, but the standard is here. And then devotees will decide what they're comfortable with. But the point being made is that the more devotees become conscious of wanting to develop their relationship with Krishna, the more conscious they become about avoiding outside food. Sometimes, and this is common, when children want to eat outside, for example, like parents will take them to places like chatkas and things like that. But again, it's not a question of whether it should be done or should not be done. Here is the standard, here are the consequences. Every devotee needs to decide for themselves. And work up to that standard. Have a plan to work up to that standard. So Prabhupada says, thus it is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. Everyone has to work for the maintenance of his body and soul together. And Krishna recommends herein that one should work for him. Everyone has to eat something to live. Therefore, he should accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Any civilized man has to perform some religious ritualistic ceremonies. Therefore, Krishna recommends, do it for me. And this is called arjana. Everyone has a tendency to give something in charity. Krishna says, give it to me. And this means that all surplus money accumulated should be utilized in furthering the Krishna consciousness movement. Nowadays, people are very much inclined to the meditational process, which is not practical in this age. But if anyone practices meditating on Krishna 24 hours a day by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on his beads, he is surely the greatest meditator and the greatest yogi, as substantiated by the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Let's take a brief 3-minute break, because from text 28, we are going to go on a run. We will finish the Chaturshloki today. So that will be an intense section. Take a brief break. 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So text 28 describes the result of practicing this level, which is slightly below the level of pure bhakti. Krishna says, Shubha Ashubha Phaler Evam Moksha Se Karma Bandhane Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mam Upaishyasi. Translation.
In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me, in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me.
So, you will be freed from any connection to this material world, from auspicious or inauspicious fruits. Your past karma will also be completely finished. Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma. By this form of yoga, where sannyasa, you're dedicating all your activities to me, sannyasa yoga yukta atma, vimukto, you will not just become liberated, you will become specially liberated. Vimukto means vishishtena mukto. Vishishtena means specifically liberated. It is far above even the mixed devotees who get the 4 kinds of liberation. You will achieve a destination superior to them. Mam upaishyasi, you'll come to me personally, very close to me. Text 29. Now Krishna is going to reveal his heart again in this verse, because Arjuna is implicitly asking in this particular verse, well, it seems like you've spoken about how you are impartial and how you are not connected to this world. But it seems that your devotees are specifically taken care of. Even with the previous verse, those who act in bhakti with you, even if they have some small material desire, are preferred to those who don't have any material desire and they're just seeking liberation. How is this the case? And Krishna says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dvesho sti na priyaha ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mai te tesha chapyaham. Translation. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. The first 2 lines describe Krishna as Paramatma. And Krishna is describing how he is equal to everybody like a judge. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. I am equal to everybody. Name dvesho asti na priyaha. I am neither dvesha, I am neither envious of anybody, nor is anybody particularly dear to me. I have a general affection for everybody, and I act to maintain them and to make sure that they progress in this world. However, ye bhajanti tu, the word tu indicates a change in the direction of the verse. Ye bhajanti tu, but those who worship me, bhaktya, with bhakti, with that feeling that they want a relationship with me, that is the characteristic of bhakti. That sense of a relationship with me, mai te teshu, I am in them and they are in me. I am in their heart. Sometimes we say, Tumhara ridhoye sada Govinda Vishram, Govinda kohena mora. That what are the last 2 phrases? Govinda kohena mora, bhakatera prana. Something is the phrase. I am within everyone's heart. Oh devotee, Govinda is personally residing in your heart, and Krishna himself says that the devotees reside in mine. And this is the level of intimacy. The devotees are an exception. The next verse, Krishna will say, but it is not just that this is a fault. This is part of my very nature. That this is how I am. The devotees, the bhakti in their heart is not caused by something material. So it is not that I am influenced by anything of this material world. They have been touched by my internal potency. This was described previously. Mahatmanas tumam partha
Devim Prakritim Ashritaha. They are under the shelter of my personal internal potency. And because of that, I am attracted to them. My partiality, my attraction to devotees who are influenced and inspired by my internal nature, and so therefore perform activities directly in a relationship with me, is part of my very nature. And here, how partial I can be. Apichetsu duracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sadur eva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Translation.
Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination.
The word api means even if. Api chet. Chet indicates a possibility. Api means also. It's like saying even if. Also if. Even if this happens. Achar means one's practice. Durachar means someone who's a miscreant, someone whose character is bad. Sudurachar means that one's character is beyond what would just be considered bad. It is abominable, awful, despicable. Sudurachar. Bhajate mam ananyabhak. However, in the core of his heart, he understands Vasudeva Sarvamiti. He understands verses like Yata Taror Mula Nishechanena. Simply by worshipping me, everything else is fulfilled. But then why is he performing these acts? It's like just his nature is like that. This example is given with Bali Maharaj. Because Bali Maharaj was connected to Sri Prahalad, and from Prahalad's association, he had the impressions of pure bhakti in his heart. Madhvacharya asks this question in the 8th canto of Bhagavatam, then why did Bali Maharaj invade the Suras, the Devatas? Why did he cause them so much trouble? And then the response is given, because he had the nature, the external nature of being an Asura. See here, bhakti, which is a state of the heart, a natural inclination towards Krishna, is disconnected from that external nature. In time, the bhakti within the heart manifests all good qualities inside. But someone can be, from the exterior perspective, extremely gruff, rude, or something else. But from within their heart, they actually care for the Vaishnavas. It may just be that presentation is not good, but their intentions are pure. If you see someone whose intentions are crooked, it means that either they don't have bhakti, and their heart is hard, or because of offenses, their heart has become crooked. But if someone has those good intentions, but a gruff or a hard exterior, that does not mean that they don't have a soft heart filled with bhakti. And there are some people who are like this, thank you Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, and that is taken to be a sign of humility. It's like, oh, this person is so humble, he's speaking so sweetly, he has grown up with such good devotion and culture. Mistake. That does not show a person's bhakti. And at the same time, someone who is loud and rude and walks about as if he owns the place, doesn't mean that they don't have bhakti. You actually have to see the inner state of their heart, their surrender to Guru, their feelings towards the Vaishnavas, the actual intention of their heart. And that is what determines the bhakti. The extreme example given in Bhagavatam is that of Vritrasura. Vritrasura was not just an asura like Bali Maharaj, he was a Rakshasa. Does anybody know the distinction between an asura and a Rakshasa? An asura is somebody who has the nature of wanting to expand and enjoy and control. That is an asuric nature. Devata's nature is one of service, and asuric nature is much more focused around oneself. That is an asura. A Rakshasa is someone who becomes even more envious and wants to disturb people who are performing pious activities or devotional activities. In fact, even from their food perspective, asuras are generally meat eaters. Rakshasas are cannibals. Cannibals, they eat human flesh. So Ravana was a Rakshasa, Bali Maharaj was an asura. Duryodhana was an asura. But Ravana was a Rakshasa. So therefore they would be eating human flesh also. But Vritrasura was not just a Rakshasa, he was the king of Rakshasas. Meaning that his job was to facilitate, expand, and increase the happiness of people whom every one of us, even people in today's society who are not devotees, would want to remove or get rid of. And he was their king. As a Rakshasa, his natural external inclination was to eat human flesh. But he had prema bhakti. And Maharaj Parikshit asks this question in the 6th canto of Bhagavatam, in the 12th or 13th chapter. He gives a full listing of all the gradation of living entities, right from plants all the way up to demigods. And he says, leave aside the demigods, mukta nam apisiddha nam narayana parayana sudurlabha prashantatma kotishiv api mahamune. He says, you forget even any living entity in this world, even those who are muktas and siddhas. Muktas are people who are jivan muktas, siddhas are people who have achieved liberation. Mukta nam api siddha nam narayana parayana sudurlabha. Even among muktas and siddhas, to find someone who is purely dedicated to Narayana, who is a pure Vaishnava, pure devotee, sudurlabha. It's not just durlabha, hard to obtain, sudurlabha, almost impossible to see. Prashantatma kotishuv api mahamane. Even among lakhs and lakhs and crores of people, crore is 10 million, even among 10 millions of people, to find one such person is practically impossible. And then he asks, how did Vritrasura, among all people, who doesn't fall anywhere in the scale, he's like the lowest of the low, from his exterior nature perspective, how did he get such a high level of bhakti? It wasn't just bhakti, it was prema bhakti. How did he get prema bhakti? And then his previous life as Chitraketu is described, and the curse that caused him to become a Rakshasa. But someone can have the exterior nature of being even a Rakshasa, but the heart of being a devotee. And this is an important distinction to understand. One's exterior nature does not determine the grade of one's bhakti, although it is generally a fact that good devotees, that those who have bhakti in their heart, manifest all good qualities in time. One should know that even if one's nature, or a person's nature, is gruff or hard, if they have the qualities of pure bhakti, that will change very quickly, and that is described in the next verse. So, api chet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak. Because of their nature, because of their lack of discrimination, they may perform certain activities that are completely abominable. There are some activities that have even caused devotees to be distanced from the congregation. It's like, this person is, we don't want his company. We don't want we don't want our children to get to know what this individual has done. We respect he's a devotee, but we don't want him nearby. But if devotees make the mistake of disrespecting that devotee, when his heart is pure, when he has the right determination and faith in his heart, then they're committing a mistake. Sadhur eva. So Arjuna is saying, okay, I accept that he may be a sadhu, but can't you say that he's a sadhu when he's a devotee and a sadhu when he's performing those other activities? Or not a devotee when he's performing the other activities? Krishna says no. Sadhur eva. Eva is an emphasis. It means only a sadhu. He's a sadhu when he's doing those activities. He's a sadhu when he's performing bhakti. Sadhur eva. But no one will accept this. Mantavya. This is my opinion. And as my opinion decides what is sin and not sin, if somebody contradicts my opinion, that means they're performing sinful activity, that they're wrong. Sadhur eva samantavya. This is my opinion. Because Samyag vyavasito hisa. He is completely situated in his determination. He understands that I am not supposed to be doing this. This is wrong. He's not making a philosophy out of what he's doing. He doesn't justify his acts of separation or deviance. I am supposed to be a devotee, he thinks. In fact, I am embarrassed to call myself a devotee. I am a disgrace to my spiritual master's name. I am a black sheep among the devotees. And for this, I am going to go to hell. I don't care. No matter what happens, let me go to hell, let me suffer. I will never give up Krishna's lotus feet. I will keep chanting Krishna's names. And I will never, ever stop worshipping Krishna. Let me suffer for lifetimes after lifetimes. Krishna, please, I don't ask you to take away my sin. I don't ask that you change and give me just whatever I'm asking for. I'm just asking that you give me the intelligence to come back to your lotus feet. And this is the mood. Samyak vyavasito hisa. So Prabodhananda Saraswati gives an example to explain this. He says that devotees who are pure, he says normally when a snake bites you, the poison from the snake goes and enters your heart and kills you. In the same way, when materialists deal with sense objects in this world, the snake of those sense objects, or the snake of that association, it influences them with the poison of the desire to enjoy those things. And it goes and enters their heart, fills their heart with the poison of material desire, and kills their spiritual nature. Kills them. But for the pure devotees, Prabodhananda Saraswati says, it is like being bitten by a snake without fangs. There is no poison that enters even into the skin, what to speak of going into the heart. And the example that is given is that of, when Krishna was jumping into the Yamuna river, there was a particular kadamba tree on which he climbed up and went down. The only reason it was not killed or not destroyed was because Garuda had put some amrit, some nectar, into that tree. The determination of pure bhakti is that nectar that sits in the heart. And it ever protects the devotee from the contamination of material desire. Rather, something astonishing happens. Even when devotees who have this determination very strongly in their heart deal with material life, in their heart, rather than being influenced towards material life, there's like a U-turn that comes about. It's like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? It was just yesterday that I was in Kirtan and I was chanting and dancing with the devotees in so much happiness. I was just in Bhagavatam class and I was just getting some taste in chanting Krishna's names. Why? What foolishness has driven me to such stupidity? Krishna, I don't know what I'm doing. I pray that please bring me back. This is the nectar that is there in their heart. And this is the U-turn that happens in their consciousness the moment they come in contact with sense objects. And that is what's being described in this verse. I want to read to you Vishwanath's commentary on this verse. It's really spectacular. Chota Haridas? But that was not exactly the same thing. Chota Haridas is an eternal associate of the Lord. But you're right. Taken from that point of view, it is, yes, a good example. Left his body. Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Actually, what he did was not even faulty, technically speaking. But Lord Chaitanya wanted to remove even that slight association as a sannyasi that he had with the Mataji. She was an elderly Mataji lady, Malati was her name. But even that slight amount of association he wanted to remove. Yeah. So here's Vishwanath's commentary. He says, my attachment to my devotee is my very nature. That attachment does not decrease even if the devotee commits wrong. for I make him come up to the highest standard. If someone with bad conduct, addicted to violence, thievery, or adultery, sudurachar, worships me, and worships no one except me, and does not follow any other processes like karma or jnana, and has no desire other than my desire, ananya bhak, he is my devotee, sadhu. But, says Arjuna, considering his bad conduct, how is he a devotee? Krishna, he is to be respected, mantavya, as a devotee, because of his devotee qualities. It is a command. Not doing so is offense. My order is the authority. Arjuna, so he should be considered a devotee in that portion where he worships you, and as a non-devotee in that portion where he commits adultery? Krishna, no. He should be considered as a devotee, eva, in all his parts. You should not see his bad qualities at all. He is completely convinced, samyag vyavastita. He makes a splendid resolution. I will go to hell for my sinful actions which are hard to give up, but I will not give up dedicated worship of Krishna. I will read you the commentary of the next verse. The verse says, Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat chantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Translation. So Arjuna says, how can you how can you accept the worship of such a sinful person, completely devoid, sinful person? How can you eat the food and drink offered by a heart contaminated with lust and anger? Because remember, Krishna had said, I accept the offering of someone with a pure heart. Krishna, very quickly he becomes righteous. The present is used and not the future to express the fact that having committed sin by remembering the Lord, he becomes repentant and thus very quickly becomes righteous. Oh, how unfortunate I am, this devotee says. There is no one as low as I bringing bad name to the devotees. Repeatedly he feels complete disgust for those actions. Or the use of the present tense can indicate that in the future he will develop righteousness quickly, but even right now that righteousness exists in a subtle form. After taking medicine, though the destructive effects of fever or poison remain for some time, it is not taken seriously. Thus, with the entrance of bhakti in his mind, the sinful actions are not taken seriously, and the traces of sins such as lust and anger should be considered insignificant, like the biting of a toothless snake. Thus he attains complete cessation of lust and anger, shantim, permanently, shashvat. In nigacchati, ni stands for nitaram, completely. This means that even during the stage of having tendency to commit sin, he has a pure heart. Arjuna, if he eventually becomes righteous, there would be no argument. But if a devotee is sinful right up until his death, what is his position? The Lord, affectionate to the devotees, Vishwanath says, then speaks loudly with a little anger. O son of Kunti, my devotee is not destroyed. At the time of death, he does not fall. Arjuna, but arguers with harsh tongues will not respect this. Vishwanath, Krishna then encourages the worried, lamenting Arjuna. He says, O Kaunteya, going to the squabbling assembly, take a whole load of drums and make a tumultuous sound and beat them and make a huge ruckus. Then throwing your arms in the air, you should fearlessly declare this. Declare what? Declare that my devotee, the devotee of the Supreme Lord, though committing sin, does not perish, but rather reaches success. Arguments defeated, pride deflated, they should undoubtedly respect you as a guru. But why, Vishwanath says, does the Lord order Arjuna to declare this when he could do it himself? As he will say later, Mam evaishyasi satyante pratijani priyosime. I declare to you that you will come to me, you are very dear to me. In the same way, why doesn't Krishna now personally declare that my devotees will never perish? The reason is explained here. The Lord considered as follows. Being affectionate to my devotee and not tolerating even a slight degradation to my devotee, I will under all circumstances uphold the declaration made by my devotee, whereas I can break my own promise and accept criticism of myself. Just as, in 10 days' time, in breaking my own promise in fighting with Bhishma, I will fulfill Bhishma's promise. Thus, hearing a declaration from my mouth, the materialistic disputers will laugh, but they will accept Arjuna's declaration as written in stone. Therefore, I will have Arjuna make the declaration. And thus, Vishwanath says, one should not accept the statements of the falsely intelligent persons who, after thinking about Ananya Bhakti, even of the greatest sinner, think that this declaration made by the pure devotee cannot apply in cases where attachment to wife and children, sinful acts, lamentation, illusion, lust, anger, and other despicable qualities manifest. That is Vishwanath's commentary. It is reproduced in the book Surrender Unto Me. It can be read there. That commentary is actually worth memorizing. It's so special. What? Vishwanath's commentary? Yes, it's a book. Banu Maharaj just translated. It's available in the bookshop, actually. Yes. No, there's a difference. There's a difference between acting just out of impulse, and there's a difference between the crookedness of heart where one is using it to justify. It's like, for example, suppose someone here has a child, and the child makes a mistake, but is willing to accept correction and punishment. But there's another child who makes a mistake and then depends on the strength of their parents to get them out of that mistake. That there's a crookedness in the second approach. And that crookedness is what prevents the holy names from acting. That person is not at all in the same category. But it is also a fact that devotees who make it a practice, okay, it's okay, this verse has said it'll do it, I made a mistake and it's okay to make a mistake. They make a philosophy out of it and they start to justify repeated mistakes. Very quickly that crooked mentality can develop. But one has to be extremely honest, very, very sincere. And that comes when one hears and chants purely and avoids offenses. Crookedness in the heart of a practicing devotee is a certain sign of offenses committed. And usually offenses begin by the inattentive chanting of Krishna's names or a neglect in the chanting of Krishna's names. So if that is the case, then it's very dangerous. But the reality is that most of us come from different things, and some of us have come with very good culture. Some of us come from a culture where there are many impressions still stored. And we are struggling. And in that struggle, someone can slip and make a mistake. But where that sincerity is that I know I've made a mistake and it's not good, I should not have done this. I have not done my spiritual master any credit by doing this. He would be ashamed of me. In Vishwanath's commentary, it was like he actually states that this indicates righteousness even right now. Even that feeling, it indicates that this person actually feels for what they've done. If a child has no sense of repentance, it means that they don't even understand, they're not even conscious of what they've done. And that's a bigger problem. But the devotee is very, very conscious of what they've done. Because he's saying that if someone doesn't believe this, then tell them it's my opinion. It's like, for example, someone in the temple says, we should be cleaning the temple room. And then another devotee says, no, I think it is fine. Then this devotee says, no, it is our spiritual master's opinion. Oh, is it? Okay. Then I will do it. The opinion of authority. emphasizing the point. Because from that point of view, every verse in the Bhagavad Gita is his opinion. And Arjuna is listening to every verse that the Lord says. Still the Lord in some places says, Tat Shrunu, hear this now. It's a re-emphasis. Carefully hear this. I'm going to speak something important. Now tune your ears in. It's a re-emphasis on what the Lord is about to speak. So here the Lord is speaking very forcefully. That's his mood. And sometimes when you're speaking forcefully, sometimes you even point fingers. This is my opinion. This is what I am saying. Of course, everything is what he's saying. But this is what I'm saying. So it's a very strong emphasis on the point. So Prabhupada says towards the end of 930, this means that even if one is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, even if one is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, is sometimes found engaged in abominable activities, these activities should be considered to be like spots that resemble the mark of a rabbit on the moon. Such spots do not become an impediment to the diffusion of moonlight. Similarly, the accidental fall down of a devotee from the path of saintly character do not make him abominable. On the other hand, one should not misunderstand that a devotee in transcendental devotional service can act in all kinds of abominable ways. This verse only refers to an accident due to the strong power of material connections. Devotional service is more or less a declaration of war against illusory energy. As long as one is not strong enough to fight the illusory energy, there may be accidental fall downs. But when one is strong enough, he is no longer subjected to such fall downs as previously explained. No one should take advantage of this verse and commit nonsense and think that he is still a devotee. If he does not improve his character by devotional service, then it is to be understood that he is not a high devotee. Prabhupada's statements are so balanced. It provides, the perspective of how it should be actually applied. Text 32. Now, in text 32 and 33, Krishna is going to say what to speak of even accidental devotees, like devotees who accidentally deviate. I'm now going to speak about the purifying effect of pure bhakti on people whose inherent nature is sinful. Now, in Kali Yuga it is said, Kalau Shudra Sambhava, that practically everyone is born a Shudra. So when here it is said women, Vaishyas and Shudras, it means that these classes of being in a previous age were seen to have more materialistic inclinations, more inclinations to perform sinful activities than those who were trained to a very high level, like Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. It is for the same reason that it is said that the Mahabharata was written for the Vaishyas, Shudras, and for ladies, because they could only learn through experience. So their intelligence was not very sharp, meaning that they had many sinful impressions from past lives. Their intelligence was not crystal clear. So this verse is saying, Mam hipartavya pasritya yepisyu papayonayah striyo vaishyas tata shudras tepi yanti param gatim. Translation. Ladies generally have a lady in Sanskrit is called Stri, one who expands the field of material enjoyment. The desire for experience, the creation, for example, of a home, expanding that into connections with family, relatives, etc. That nature of expanding is very prominent for ladies in general. For Vaishyas, the tendency to lie in business is prominent, and focus on making money. For Shudras, a tendency to gamble, tendency to drink, tendency to waste one's time is prominent. But even people, not just of accidental slips in character, but people